Hello, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. My name is Ingrid Ahlgren. I'm a new postdoctoral fellow here in anthropology. Since I just began this project about 6 weeks ago here at NMNH, today I'm really going to introduce the inception of this project, the aims, some early ideas, and some of the exciting developments that have happened so far. My current project herein examines the design, form, and pattern in the borders of the plated or woven mats from the Republic of the Marshall Islands in the Northern Pacific, as a way of understanding how sociality and identity are expressed in material objects and have transformed over time. These mats, which are plated from processed pandanus leaves and hibiscus inner tree bark, were produced in sets of 2 to be worn by women, although a similar form and design ethic has been employed for the sitting mats of chiefs. The weaving of these mats for these purposes has fallen out of use since prior to World War II, after interaction with German, American, Japanese, and missionary and colonial powers. I personally became interested in examining these mats roughly a decade ago while living in the islands, during the early days of a weaving revitalization project called Jaquier that has encouraged women to re-engage in weaving what used to be these clothing mats, now as art pieces, both to encourage traditional skill sets in a contemporary setting and to find new sources of economic sustainability. I was intrigued by the beauty of these mats and how the designs in these contemporary mats differed from those I'd seen in museum collections and photographs. Select elders that I have spoken to, as well as one early German ethnographer from the 19th century, have suggested that the form and the design of these mats have followed standard design laws. Each intricate border band seen here was constrained to a finite set of motifs, whereby each may represent membership to ancestral clans, kin groups, and significant relations. The Marshallese social system is a highly structured one, where one's clan rank and land rights are inherited through the mother's side, while the lineage of one's father is basically considered to be of lesser significance. Of the more than 40 matrilineal clans that are recognized today, several of higher rank have direct historical roots, linking them to progenitor spirits and chiefs, which allows them certain societal benefits. Knowledge of the status of each individual on any given social setting and day is quite important even today, as it dictates one's appropriate behavior. So my project aims to examine how some of that social information may be encoded within these mats. For example, this band here is said to be called Lola and purportedly represents or perhaps indicates that matrilineal lineage, the predominant way in which individuals gain land rights and status. The term Lola means to wreath and weave flowers into one's hair. It can also mean to pierce or puncture, evoking notions of pervasiveness, a continuous interwoven line. There we go. This band here is called Tilitil and refers to the kin group of the father, which, as you now know, holds little value in determining rank and land rights. The term tilitil can refer to embroidery as well as things being spotted or dotted, evoking images of sparsity as well as superficiality in a sense. These visual clues, if you will, may have been particularly important amidst a very dispersed society spread out over hundreds of miles and where inter-atoll travel was frequent in the exchange of goods and intermarriage. Today, it remains custom to never step a foot in an island that is not yours or for which you do not have explicit permission from the chief. These articles of clothing may act as a way of situating oneself within the social and geographical milieu and communicating as well as legitimizing one's identity. A large portion of this project is to systematically examine, document, catalog, and analyze these design elements in the mats, creating a comparative motif database, complemented and expanded by archival research. Where certain mats originate from various atolls and various clans and lineages have associated motifs, certain patterns are expected to arise. The diversity, variety, and prevalence of certain motifs within each of these bands, coupled with provenance information, I hopefully will speak to a larger understanding of local epistemologies, that is, local indigenous ways of knowing that can incorporate identity, the environment, space, place, and sociality. The Smithsonian has a collection of roughly 50 mats, ranging from those collected by Townsend and Moore as part of the U.S. fishing expedition in 1899, as well as donations from missionary families and Trust Territory period government workers. I'm also incorporating digital photographs of mats in other collections from select museums in Germany, Hawaii, and the British Museum in order to expand my comparative set with mats of differing provenance and collection histories. What makes the hands-on work here at the Smithsonian particularly invaluable is, of course, examining these materials up close, as well as some of the raw or processed materials used. The more than 40 cultigens of pandanus in the Marshall Islands are variously prevalent in and preferred by certain atoll communities for certain kinds of weaving. The ethnographic collection holds the soaked, beaten, and processed leaves, as well as the mangrove buds used in the dyeing process, as well as the inner bark of the hibiscus tree, seen here, dyed and undyed. That's the hibiscus. It will be exciting to discover whether other such raw materials also reside within the botany collections. Today, more and more people in the Marshall Islands live in quite close proximity in the capital of Majuro, where confluence of historical, internal, and external interactions have transformed the social and environmental setting. The more direct geographical link to clan identity has been shifting, a process that can be witnessed in the mats that women have started weaving today. So in a secondary part of my project, I'm examining those contemporary and post-World War II mats, which have incorporated, borrowed, adopted, and adapted various old and novel designs and materials. They will aid in my reflection upon how identity and environment interact, exchange, and transform over time. Finally, I wish to conclude by saying that while it is early into this project, I'm really quite pleased that additional opportunities have been presented to increase the value and scope of the project. Firstly, funds have been ascertained with Adrian Kepler to conserve many of the older mats in the collections. And secondly, there are some external partners and internal partners that are shaping up to bring in some funds to bring in a couple community scholars from the Marshall Islands for a month to interact with the mats, exchange knowledge, and aid in the conservation process. Thank you.
You think you're going to be able to actually link any of these motifs to any of the clans or populations?
Yes, I am cautiously optimistic about that. I think it is a bit tricky since you're dealing with really old mats and since some of this knowledge has been quote-unquote lost over time, although I think there are bits and pieces that many elders still recall that can be put together. And that coupled with the information that we know about where some of these mats come from, and certain clans come from certain atolls, we may be able to link some of those. And with the chiefly sitting mats, those will be an important clue too, since much more is known about the lineages of high chiefs than, say, the commoners.
Ingrid, let's get you involved with this. Tell us why you got involved in anthropology, and is weaving sort of your thing, or are you studying a diversity of...
Yeah, so, well, you saw a little bit of why I was interested, but I was born and raised in the Marshall Islands and grew up there. And I just recently finished my PhD looking at traditional ecological knowledge and sort of ideas of sacred cosmologies and sacred ecologies and taboo. And I think all of this stuff started linking together for me after being there for about 10, 11 years, seeing that the way that people communicated their identity through the environment in different ways. And so that was sort of revelation for me. And I was fortunate enough to do the summer internship here as well for museums and anthropology, and that sort of turned me on to the material culture side of things and as a way of using it as sort of a data source.
They seem to be primarily geometric. There doesn't seem to be a lot of flowing patterns, or particularly, I would have thought, more biological thing. You had a few things where you showed a crab or something. I'm just curious about that in general.
Sure. I mean, some of it I would imagine comes from the form that you're working with and the certain patterns that you can actually make when you're weaving tiny strands of hibiscus or pandanus. So I think that's going to be a finite sort of set because of that. And it's early days yet, but you saw that there were some abstractions from certain things. So we know a lot more about tattoo motifs. That's been studied much more extensively, and they seem to have similar concepts of where certain bands and certain motifs could only be in certain parts of the body, and that would reflect your status as well. So I'll be linking some of those designs, and there are some clan totems that people no longer really recognize, but there's some in the records that may assist in that. So for example, there's one clan that traditionally has the shark as its sort of clan totem. So there may be sort of links between those designs. So.